Welcome to my channel. Today we will look at the history of Angola. You will learn about its ancient past, how it got colonized, how it fought for its independence, and how it has fared since then. Make sure to watch till the end to find out how a civil war led to Angola becoming one of the richest countries in Africa. Angola is located in southern Africa, bordering the Atlantic Ocean, with Namibia to the south, the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the east, and Zambia and Tanzania to the north. It is home to 26 million people who speak Portuguese, making it the only country in Africa where this language is an official language. The country is divided into 80. Luanda is its capital and largest city. Benguela and Cabinda are its second and third largest cities respectively. But before we continue, please take some time to subscribe so you won't miss any of our informative videos. Angola is rich in natural resources, including diamonds, gold, oil, and iron ore. Unfortunately, these resources have not translated to prosperity for the people of Angola, as it is still one of the least developed countries in the world. Despite all the riches that are present in the nation, there are still many living in extreme poverty. Let's go back in time to find out why. According to historical records, the first inhabitants of Angola were the Bantu, people who migrated from Central Africa between the 4th century BC and the 5th century AD. They intermixed with the native Pygmies. The Ovimbundu, one of the Bantu groups, dominated central and southern Angola by the 14th century, while the other groups settled along the coast. The main economic activity of the natives was agriculture, growing crops like bananas, cassava, maize, rice, and sweet potatoes. They also hunted and kept livestock. Their social structure had kings, chiefs, counselors, nobles, warriors, hunters, and slaves. Slaves played a significant role in their society. Many of them were prisoners of tribal wars, but some were owned by chiefs as property. The slave trade would later take a devastating turn. When Europeans arrived on the scene, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to reach Angola in 1483. When they established a trading post in Luanda, they quickly realized that the natives had no immunity against European diseases such as smallpox. This, combined with hard labor in the mines and farms, caused the population to drop drastically. To replace the decreasing native labor force, the Portuguese began importing slaves from Central Africa. They used these slaves to work in the mines and farms of their new colony. In 1575, Angola became a province of the Portuguese Empire and was initially known as Angola e Congo, later changed to simply Angola. The colony specialized in producing agricultural products such as sugar, tobacco, cotton, and coffee, which were exported to Europe. The slave trade reached its peak during the 18th century, with approximately 2 million slaves being shipped across the Atlantic. The wealth generated from the colony went primarily to the Portuguese nobility and the clergy, while the majority of the population lived in extreme poverty. During the 19th century, the Portuguese colonial administration focused on exploiting Angola's vast mineral resources, particularly diamonds and gold. The colonial government implemented policies to suppress any form of uprising among the native population. This included forced labor, imprisonment without trial, and torture. By the early 20th century, the desire for independence began to grow among the educated elite of Angola. However, the Portuguese dictatorship saw any form of nationalism as a threat to their rule and brutally suppressed any dissent. As World War II came to an end, many Angolans who had served in the Portuguese military returned home with the expectation that their service would lead to greater rights and representation within the colonial administration. However, their hopes were dashed when the Portuguese refused to grant them any concessions. This sparked widespread protests and violence, leading to the start of the long and bloody War for Independence. On February 4, 1961, to leftist guerrilla movements, the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, or MP, and the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, or UNITA, launched coordinated attacks on Portuguese positions across the territory. Both groups sought to overthrow the Portuguese colonial regime and establish independent states based on Marxist-Leninist principles. While these uprisings caught the Portuguese off guard, the colonial authorities swiftly responded with brutal force, employing their well-trained security forces to crush the rebellions. Realizing that conventional military tactics were not effective, both the MPLA and UNITA adopted guerrilla warfare strategies, launching surprise attacks on the Portuguese and retreating into the dense jungle terrain before the arrival of reinforcements. As the war dragged on, the Portuguese colonial regime grew increasingly desperate. In 1966, they brought in thousands of troops to put down the rebellion once and for all. This marked a turning point in the conflict, as the sheer scale of violence employed by the Portuguese shocked international observers. Despite facing a much larger and better-equipped adversary, the Angolan rebels persisted. The MPLA, under the leadership of Agostinho Neto, enjoyed support from the Soviet Union and Cuba, while UNITA, led by Jonas Savimbi, received aid from the United States, South Africa, and China. The prolonged nature of the war and the heavy casualties resulted in a stalemate. With both sides unwilling to compromise, the war continued to escalate. Finally, on November 11, 1975, the Portuguese government, exhausted and seeking a way out, officially recognized the independence of Angola, which led to the withdrawal of their troops. 3 days later, the MPLA proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of Angola. However, the fragile peace did not last long. Clashes between the MPLA and UNITA soon erupted into full-scale civil war. The war between UNITA and the MPLA resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. The fighting intensified with the Soviet Union supporting the MPLA and the United States backing UNITA. As the war escalated, the Angolan government invited Cuban troops to assist them in fighting UNITA. The presence of Cuban troops led to further involvement in the conflict, drawing in more Soviet and Western resources. This turned the civil war into a proxy war between the superpowers. By the late 1980s, the war had taken a heavy toll on Angola's infrastructure and economy. The Angolan government continued to receive support from its allies, while UNITA persisted with its insurgency despite heavy losses. The conflict remained unresolved, with neither side willing to compromise. In 1991, a peace agreement was finally reached, and elections were held in 1992. Unfortunately, UNITA rejected the results, alleging fraud and violence, and the civil war resumed. Fighting continued until 2002, when Jonas Savimbi, the leader of UNITA, was killed. This led to the demobilization of UNITA forces and the beginning of the post-war era. Since the end of the Civil War, Angola has made efforts to rebuild its economy and infrastructure. Oil production has been a significant contributor to economic growth, although it has not yet translated to widespread prosperity. The government has invested in various sectors, including agriculture, industry, and services. Angola continues to face challenges such as poverty, inequality, and corruption. The country has experienced periods of economic instability due to fluctuations in oil prices. Despite these challenges, Angola has maintained a stable political environment and continued to attract foreign investment. It should be noted that this is just a simplified overview of a very complex and multifaceted topic. Each of these events and periods has its own complexities and nuances that cannot be fully explored in a short video. We encourage you to delve deeper into each of these topics to gain a more comprehensive understanding of Angola's rich and dynamic history. Thank you for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed learning about the history of Angola. If you did, please don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe so you won't miss any of our informative videos. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank all of our supporters for their generous support. Your contributions help us create quality educational content, and we truly appreciate your support. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.